Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Governance and Resources Committee meeting, held over Zoom. We're going to start with the apologies, please, from Jackie.
Yes, Chair, I've received apologies from councillors Cruz and Raw. No substitutes have been put forward.
Thank you. Right. Upon doing that, can we actually go through with a roll call to see who's actually here now, please, Jackie?
Yeah, sure. Councillor Allison?
Yes, I'm here.
Archer? No.
No.
Bull?
Yeah.
Buttle?
Yeah.
Chapman?
Here.
Donnelly?
Yeah.
Flitter?
Yeah.
Councillor Hill's on her way, I think. Hobson?
Present.
Morley?
Yes, thank you, Jackie.
Purdy?
Yes, thank you, Jackie.
Ratcliffe?
Here, thank you.
Black?
Oh, yeah, Mr. Chair.
And Sutton?
Here.
Thank you, that's it.
Thank you. So we're just waiting for Councillor Hill and Archer. Are we any further forward, do we know, with Councillor Archer?
Not heard anything.
I've not heard anything.
Yeah.
I think you just have to press on.
I think what I'll do, I'll carry on. We'll go through the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 9th of January 2020. Can I see a mover for those, please? Councillor Morley?
Yes, I'm happy to move that, please.
Can I
Thank
see
you.
a seconder, please?
I'm happy to second.
Go ahead.
Councillor Hobson, seconding that. All in favour, please show of hands. I think that's unanimous, thank you. Item 3, public participation. Have we got anything, Chris, Jackie?
None received as far as I know.
No questions, Chair.
There's no questions from the public. Item 4, members' interests. Has anybody got anything to declare, please? No. Okay, thank you. Item 5, questions from members. Any questions from members?
No questions, Chair.
No questions again. Lovely. Okay, then we will move into the main part of the agenda of item 6, which is complaints monitoring. Okay, I will move over to James, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this is the annual complaints monitoring report, which has been presented to you today. It's quite a positive report, setting out the progress that's been made in terms of how we manage complaints. So of the 141 complaints that we received in 2019-20, only 31 were escalated to stage 2 or stage 3, which compares favourably to the previous year where 66 were escalated to that stage. Of those 31, 15 were dealt with at director level, with 16 being reviewed by the chief executive. In terms of complaints to the local government ombudsman, no complaints have been upheld in the past 12 months, which compares to 3 in the previous year. And district councils across the country, they actually have a rate of 45% on average being upheld against them. So again, this is a positive reflection on Derbyshire Dales. Moving on to the whistleblowing policy, happy to report that no matters referred to the monitoring officer to review under the whistleblowing policy. And then moving swiftly on again to complaints against elected representatives. There were 3 complaints against representatives in the district in the past year, with 2 of those being against district councillors, where no breach of the code of conduct was found, but recommendations were made in respect of training and in one case for an apology to be issued to the complainant. There was 1 complaint against the parish councillor, which is still outstanding, and having come into post last week as your monitoring officer, I'll be looking to conclude that at the earliest opportunity. So that's a very quick summary of the report, Chair, and I'm happy to take any questions the members may have.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, two questions, Chair James. First of all, there's been a big drop in complaints. Is that mainly due to the new system of three-stage system, James? So that's my first question. The second question is looking at residents' parking permits. There seem to be a lot of complaints over that, more so than anything else at the moment. Is there any reason for why there's more complaints about parking permits? Them two questions, James. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. If I can respond to the question on the parking permits first, I'll do that because I can't actually respond to it. I haven't got into the granular detail around why that's at the level it's at, but I will come back to you after the meeting. And in terms of the number of complaints, again, I'll have to come back to you in writing after the meeting, Councillor. I don't have that information to hand. You'll appreciate the report was prepared before I arrived at the authority, so I'll come back to you on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that all right for you, councillors? Like, obviously, as James has just made the point. Yeah. Are there any more questions? Councillor Ratley, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. A question, if I may, but I'd just like to reiterate some of the comment, if you like, that James has given in his summation of the report. Clearly, you know, any complaint is something we would rather do without. And though we can't be complacent, as he has indicated, I think, the outcomes of this report are showing us that, generally speaking, our councillor services are something that we can generally be happy with. I note too what he has also commented on, which is the LGO annual review on complaints directly involving the council, and the fact that we were recorded as 0%, whereas the average is 45%. So I think that is something that perhaps, again, we can have a little tick against us, as it were. My question relates to the complaints that were lodged against members directly, and to ask James, just going through the tables of those complaints and the substance is there, whether or not he feels there was anything there that was relevant for future training of members. Was there anything emerging whereby some further, as I say, member development training would be useful?
Thank you. James, would you like to take that, please?
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm not familiar with the full detail of the cases, but in my experience, any case, any complaint in respect of code of conduct matters is probably useful to bring to members' attention, because you're all in the same position. You're all potentially going to face the same scenarios in the various wards that you represent. So any kind of experience that we have in terms of complaints that we receive, I think we can certainly share that with members. And you know, in terms of the conclusion of those complaints and the actions arising from it, we'd certainly look to share that as a matter of practice anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Flitter, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's just on the parish one, on item 3 on page 7. Is there still a local standards board or committee? It's some time since I've heard about anything in that regard. And is there a mistake on here, or should it read, however, it says other councillor was formerly, is that another councillor, or
other councillors.
What
I can't
page?
say welcome, James.
Thank you, councillor. I'll come back to you separately on the detail of that, the resolution or potential resolution to that complaint. It's still in motion, and we'll be looking to conclude it as soon as possible. But the deputy monitoring officer has been dealing with that, and I've yet to be briefed on the full detail of it. So I'll come back to you on that if that's okay.
Thank you. Regarding all those questions that have been asked, James, could I ask if that once these have been concurred, is there a possibility that these could be emailed out to the members for their complaint to look over this?
Certainly, Chair, I'll do that.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, there's nobody else any more questions. We'll move into debate. Councillor Chapman, can I ask you?
Sorry, Chair.
Would you like to move this?
Sorry, yes, I'll move the proposal. Yeah.
Do I find a seconder, please? Councillor. I will. Councillor Buttle. Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. Does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Purdy, thank you.
I would just like to comment. Thank you, Chair. As Councillor Ratcliffe said, this is a good report, and it's not that we want any complaints, and we don't like to be complained about. You know, I've had a complaint made against me recently about a planning matter, and I was exonerated, and I knew I was in the right, but it still hurts. And I think it shows pride in our work, and I think this is a report that reflects the good work of the officers and the council. So I see this as a good report, Chairman, and I'm happy to support it.
Hear, hear.
Lovely, thank you for that. I echo those comments as well. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Can I have a roll call, Jackie, as regards voting?
Councillor Allison.
For.
Bull.
For.
Buttle.
For.
Chapman.
For.
Donnelly.
For.
Splitter.
For.
Hill.
I better abstain because I missed the first part, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Hill.
Hobson.
For.
Morley.
For.
Purdy.
For.
Ratcliffe.
For.
Slack.
For.
And Sutton.
For.
That's 12 in favour, 1 abstention.
Thank you. And that's carried. Thank you very much. Item 7, proposed grant and community asset transfer of land at Hulland Ward Recreation Ground off Ashes Avenue, Hulland Ward. Okay, can I bring in Mike Galsworthy, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. I think this is a fairly self-explanatory report, and it's dealing with, in effect, a windfall from a housing development on the adjacent site, where we've negotiated a payment for an easement passing through the Hulland Ward Recreation Ground. The easement doesn't cause any difficulties with the use of the ground, but there's also a bit of a tidying up exercise because of the lease that's in place currently that the parish council have is not a good lease. It's only got 4 years left to run, and what we're proposing is, as part of this exercise, to actually transfer the freehold of the recreation ground to the parish council as a community asset transfer. And because of the situation with the lease, we own the land. There's a lease on the land to the parish council. Because of the situation with that, they need to be a party to the agreement with the housing developer, and that's the reason why we as the district council aren't keeping the whole capital receipt of 50,000, but we are providing a proportion of that amounting to 22,000 to the parish council. Now, the way the mechanics of that works, that's labelled as a grant, but it is basically, and it has to go into capital programme and be approved at full council next week. But basically, in real terms, what we're doing is we're getting a capital receipt and we're dividing it up. Part of it goes to the parish council, the remainder stays with the district council. So that's all I have to add to the report, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Okay, Councillor Mike Ratcliffe, please.
I don't actually have a question, Chair, but if you'd allow me, I will, at the beginning, move the report. And in doing so, just make this comment. I suspect within this report, there is clearly an ethical obligation here, as well as the legal one, shall we say. Though perhaps I think we'd need to be a lawyer ourselves to appreciate some of the complexity of it. However, this sense of fairness, I think, underlies it. And we're obviously and very clearly pursuing that in the payment to Hulland Ward Parish Council. It is, as Mike has just indicated, something of a windfall for us. And I think it's only right and proper, given the situation that brought this about, that we offer some share of it to Hulland Ward. And I know what it's going to be used for, which I think is very commendable. It will certainly assist with the community, the enlargement of the car park there. As I say, I fully endorse it and the intentions behind it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ratcliffe. Councillor Donnelly.
Well, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I echo Mike's sentiment entirely, and I'm quite happy to second it, and I'm sure we can find a very good home for 22,000 in due course. Thank you very much.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Thanks, Chair. Looking at this, I think we also probably owe slight gratitude to Clues Development, because they were in the position where possibly using their rights with this under the Water Industry Act, they could probably have gone ahead and just bypassed us, and nobody would have received a penny. Is that the case, Mike? So should we have a little bit of appreciation to Clues Development?
Mike, please.
Yes, Chair. As Councillor Chapman's rightly stated, they could have gone under statutory powers with Severn Trent Water to get this easement. The reason why they prefer, and generally housing developers prefer, to do these things by agreement with the landowner is simply a matter of time, really. It takes a long time, I understand, to achieve an easement through statutory powers. So therefore, they've approached us, the developer have approached us to see whether we could agree something. And obviously we've negotiated a figure, and that's the figure that we've agreed. But yeah, they do have another option. If negotiations had broken down or we couldn't agree, they could have gone under statutory powers, but that would take quite a bit longer.
Lovely, thank you very much for that, Mike. Is there anybody else who wishes to make any comments upon this item? Then upon that, I will take it that it's been moved by Councillor Ratcliffe, seconded by Councillor Donnelly, and I'll ask Jackie to go through for the votes, please.
Councillor Allison.
For.
Bull.
For.
Battle.
For.
Chapman.
For.
Donnelly.
For.
Flitter.
For.
Hill.
For.
Hobson.
For.
Morley.
For.
Purdy.
For.
Ratcliffe.
For.
Black.
4.
Sutton.
4.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. That carries that one. Thank you very much, everybody. Moving on to item 8, Equality Consultation and Engagement Plan 1920. I'll bring in Steve Capes first, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and I will make a brief introduction and then call on Lynn Chung to continue. This is our annual Equalities Consultation and Engagement Report. The last one was last July. There are a few new things this year. One thing that's new are the new equality objectives that tie in with our new corporate plan. And they're in section 3.4 of the report. And if you look at them, you'll see that they link closely with our people, place and prosperity themes. A further update to add, perhaps, Chairman, is on member training on equalities and diversity. That's referenced in paragraph 4.3 of the report. Members will recall that equalities training is mandatory for them. You will also see that it features in the member development plan, which is later on this agenda. By way of update, the specification for the member equality and diversity training has now been agreed with Councillor Atkin, the chairman of the Member Development Working Group, and Lynn will soon be going out for quotes to procure an external trainer for this. Another element of this training, which I think is a positive, it will actually be training for members and senior managers together. So it won't just be members, it'll also be senior members of the council. It'll be joint training for us all together. And the dates of November are in the training development plan further on the agenda. One last thing I'll mention, if I may, Chair, is that one of the activities in this year's equality plan is to review the District Council's equality policy. This was last reviewed in 2016, so it's timely to look at it again. But what we have agreed to do this time is to seek external assistance to help us with that review. We've got 2 critical friends from outside the council who are going to give support to the council in reviewing our equality plan. One of them is Derbyshire Dales Council for Voluntary Service, and the other is the African Caribbean Community Association based in Chesterfield. So between them, we will have people who will give us challenge, but also support in reviewing our equality plan. I'll hand over to Lynn Chung to add a few further words of points, but in doing so, I'd like to perhaps thank Lynn for 5 years of working for the District Council. She is going to be retiring this year, so this is her last meeting, quite likely, with the council. And I just wanted to thank her for her unrivaled technical expertise, her good Yorkshire no-nonsense approach, but also a very fair and pragmatic approach to equalities issues, which has helped keep me certainly on the straight and narrow for the last 5 years, and by osmosis, members also. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, to go straight into the report. As you are aware, we are required to set equality objectives, and we also are required to have a number of aims with regard to the Equalities Act, which are always set out in any document to do with equalities. So I'll allow you to read that bit. What we have had for the last number of years is a series of objectives which we've gradually whittled down and down and down, and they are reported on here. The final year, the targets have mostly been exceeded, which is very pleasing, and they've certainly all been fully achieved. So in sum, we've provided a lot of adaptations to the homes of disabled people over the years. We've provided debt and welfare advice to vulnerable households, and we've always managed to get a high level of satisfaction with our waste services. So progress has been good. Moving on, we need to set objectives also for the coming years, and it's timely with a new corporate plan in place to change the equality objectives and align more closely with the corporate plan again. Largely because that was a huge consultation exercise, which set priorities for residents and also for members. And to support all that, we have our overall way of working, our corporate objective, which is around the one team, one council, because we are all in it together, aren't we? We've all got one purpose here. So the objectives that we proposed are slightly different. Again, it's about high customer satisfaction with the quality of services. What was quite keen to include that, because the Equality and Human Rights Commission, when it reviewed local authorities' equality objectives a couple of years ago, said that many of us haven't focused enough on customer satisfaction with services. So it's important to put that in. Again, we've linked to the climate change strategy and to the clean and green service, particularly around protecting vulnerable people. We've also got a new objective around housing development, because we have changed direction on our housing approach. And we have a great deal going on to try and attract investment into the area. And we are looking at provision of jobs for younger people again. Whereas before, the young people were finding employment, the situation's changed because of the COVID pandemic. And again, the fifth objective is around the one team approach. So I've given you an update on the last year's objectives and the progress we've made. And now we have a new plan for equalities, consultation and engagement, which sets out over a 2-year period what we aim to do. This includes those new objectives and some key pieces of work coming up, which include review of the council's car parking order, the climate change supplementary planning documents, and the next iteration of the local plan. Again, key areas of work, as Steve's alluded to, include training for managers and for members to make sure it's thoroughly embedded throughout the organisation. Bear in mind that members of staff already do mandatory equalities training and they do use the online training tool. We will continue to do equality impact assessments where they're relevant and proportionate. We've got a programme, a dynamic programme of planned EIAs for the coming years, which include the housing allocation policy and any other key pieces of work that come up. So moving on to the updated action plan, we've set out exactly what the targets were and what we've achieved. We've had an 85% satisfaction rate with the refuse and recycling service via the online panel. We've delivered everything that we were expected to deliver. So that plan updates that. The consultation and engagement action plan was over a 2-year period. We were forecasting ahead a little, but we've actually delivered pretty consistently against this too, despite the impact of the floods on some things and various other different things that happened in the authority at the time. We've made good progress on delivering all of those consultation goals. Now in Appendix 2, we have the full plan for the equality, consultation and engagement plans that we're taking over the next 2 years. Again, it sets out the legislative context and the regulations which support this piece of work, because I keep reminding you, the equality objectives themselves are statutory. So it sets out how we take account of issues in the decisions that you make. It sets out an overview of the Dales community, the new objectives, and the performance indicators we use, hopefully, to monitor its progress, set out in different actions for the years ahead. And then we've got the integral duty to consult alongside that. Again, it's been mentioned we're going to be looking at the equality and diversity policy, refreshing that, making sure it's up to date, fit for purpose, proceeding with equality impact assessments and engagement. And most of the information around the demographics of the authority you're very familiar with. And of course, we need to keep on top of what is changing in recent times. So I did look at the most recent out of work benefit claims and looked back at that from previous times. And we have had some big increases since the pandemic opened out across the country. I felt it was important to include in this key document some of the things we'd actually been doing as a council, as one team to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic, and some of the tremendous achievements that have been reported to you as members over the last few months. It really sets out how we have prioritised people, particularly the most vulnerable people, and trying to support things from our perspectives. People can come through the pandemic safely. So then again, the equality objectives are set out in section 5 of that report, which I told you about earlier. Again, linking to the people, place and prosperity objectives that were set by our corporate plan consultation. Programs against all of these will be monitored by yourselves and by the corporate leadership team on a regular basis. So you will always be aware of exactly where we are. If you want to go through the appendixes in any detail, by questions later, I'm happy to do that. I think they set out quite clearly what we're aiming to achieve and what is achievable for us. I think I'm particularly pleased that we've got more objectives from HR and member development, which weren't featured in the last equality objectives that we had. I think it's important because it supports this one council approach. We've also plugged in some new things like linking to raising awareness of domestic abuse and promoting support services, because we already do that. I think it's come up in the pandemic. There have been huge numbers of increases of reports, and that needs some specialist work. There's also new legislation coming on track, which we need to have on our radar so we know what's happening. And also, I have to say, that's a personal passion of mine, so I've included it. Again, the climate change strategy, we can insulate more homes for vulnerable people, we can help. So that's in there, as is the more customary things that you're expecting to see. Building more council homes for rent, because we are now agreed that we are to do that. And again, a really consistent approach to delivering on the equality duties. Included in that is retaining the disability confidence standard. As one of your disabled employees who's supported extremely well by this authority and by my managers, I have to say, we definitely do merit that standard. So I'm hopeful that will be retained, because I think we've got a good reputation here. Again, we've got the programme of equality impact assessments, which I've listed in the document. And always on the horizon is any potential service reviews, because one thing we've learned over the last few years is we don't know what's coming, do we? We don't know what's around the corner. So key pieces of consultation work you'll be aware of, but I've also included in there something about the council's assets review, where we're looking at equality issues. That's a piece of work that Tim Braun's been leading on for the time being. And we now have a list, I believe, of assets and some appropriate group who will hopefully be able to advise us on how we take that forward. So I'll hand over to you. See if there's any questions or anything that you want clarifying.
Thank you very much for that, Lynn. That was very, very comprehensive, as is the report. And from what you've read out and what is in the report, we have obviously got our finger on the pulse to try and do the best we can for all the community under whatever issues they have. So I'm very thankful to yourself for doing the reports, as well as all the staff behind. And I echo, you have a wonderful retirement as and when it's due. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Chair. Well, as leader, Lynn, I'd like to echo the appreciation for your work. You're one of those people that work quietly in the background, but it's evident from what you just said and from this content of this report, there's an immense amount of work goes into this, and it's very far-reaching. And I don't think many members fully realise that, if I may say, and that's where training comes in. Those of us longer service members in council are probably aware of this, but I think with respect to new members, you might realise, look, reading this report, just the depth of it. Also, if I may say, as an ex-member of the Blue Light Services, and I'll see smiles come on members of those faces that are members of the ex-Blue Light Services, we always had a one-team approach. We had to, because our lives depended upon it in some situations. And that's why when I became leader, I was pleased when the chief exec came up with this one-team approach. And I think this is working. It's work in progress. It's a book that's not completed yet. And it's also shaped by world events. So I'm pleased, and I hope members will be pleased, that the challenge that was set to us after the events in Florida, we met that challenge, and you'll hear now that we are going external for advice, and it's not to denigrate any of your work at all, Lynn. You've done fabulous work and excellent work for the authority, but I'm sure you will say, as well as me, that world events touch upon even a small authority like ours, and quite rightly so. It's a pity there's not respect for everybody everywhere in life, but unfortunately that's the name of the game. And when you read in the news today about what's happened to that poor unfortunate Russian opposition member, you just think, you know, we're very lucky to live in a country where at least we've got freedom of speech and we can say what we want, and it might upset people, but at least your tea's not going to be poisoned. So thank you once again, Lynn, for your hard work. It's very much appreciated. I'm happy to move the recommendations, Chair, but I'm sure other members might want to say a few words to Lynn.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Purdy. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Right, thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, I'll start by actually saying that I'll be very happy to second this report along with Councillor Purdy. And actually, I'd like to reiterate, if you like, some of the things that he said, because I think they are deserving of repetition. I will start again, though, as he did, with in thanking Lynn for her work. Congratulations and thanks are thoroughly deserved. This is a very extremely comprehensive report, and as Councillor Purdy has pointed out, it shows the depth to which this policy goes across all avenues and departments of this council. It is an extremely significant policy. Apart from anything else, it sets the moral tone for what this district council is actually about. And it's doing that, of course, in very challenging times. As Councillor Purdy has again said, we had and still have issues that need to be faced. And this report is actually going some way to showing us how we can meet those. I have, if you like, Lynn, something of a slightly rhetorical question, but I will mention it, if I may. One of the things that I was drawn to over the recent, shall we say, the Black Lives Matter issues was an examination of our own structure within the district council. Over the last 20 years or more, we've only had one black officer, to my knowledge, a lady called Caroline Douglas, I think her name was, working in licensing. How do you think we can move proactively to recruit more officers and staff of ethnic backgrounds?
Well, Councillor, the answer to that is every district council in Derbyshire has tried to do that over the last 20 years. I hesitate to say this, but if you also look at the police, the fire service, they also struggle to attract large numbers from the groups that they're targeting. If you speak to the chair of Chesterfield African Caribbean Community Association, he's an ex-firefighter with a reputation for having got people into firefighting roles. And he said that London Fire Brigade didn't get anywhere until it ran a fire engine at Notting Hill Carnival. So maybe we need to think differently. What I can say is what you do find is ethnic minorities living in Derbyshire tend to be professionals and not having the same experiences as those, say, in inner cities. That sounds a little facetious, but I think you know what I mean. Yeah. So it's an absolute conundrum that it's almost impossible to ask. It's a very welcoming district. We do have tourists, yeah. And also you've got to remember too that ticking the race box on a monitoring form isn't mandatory.
No.
Maybe not everybody ticks the box that actually qualifies as such. The same would be true of disability and certainly of sexual orientation. So it's a real difficult one. And I know it's one that Deborah Unwin has grappled with. And as I say, every area around has grappled with. I think if you look to the county council, which does have higher ethnic minority employees in numbers, many of them are actually in the social care and education sectors, which we don't have the responsibility for. So again, it's about where people are clustered in employment and the type of roles. Because, you know, the fire service, as an example, wouldn't appeal to everybody because you've got to work shifts. The same would be true of any of the blue light services, wouldn't it? Also, to some extent, social care. It's a very difficult one, Councillor, and I wish I had an answer.
No.
But I don't think that's going to stop us to continue to try.
But you've given me a very interesting and very full reply, though, and you've made me think a little too, which is no bad thing. So I thank you again for everything you've done for this authority, and we'll endeavour to keep things progressing in the way I'm sure you would like.
I'm sure I'll be following it.
Councillor Slack, have you got a question or any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to echo Councillor Purdy and Ratcliffe's comments. It's a fantastic, good report, and one little item I would like to pick out, and the improvement housing for vulnerable people. The target was 57, but now we're 74, so that's tremendous outcome in that one area. Equalities is the thing nowadays. We've seen it with Black Lives Matter and equality. We need equality in this country as well as any other country. I know this country is more tolerant than most, but we're not perfect. Recently, we've seen a politician, an MP, stopped by the police. We've seen a police inspector, coloured police inspector, stopped by the police. There is areas which some of the training is needed to bring more equality to everyone. And I would like to see a black officer in the Derbyshire Dales and a black member for that as well, coming into the Derbyshire Dales. I think equality is what we've got to go for, and we should all support greater equality in gender, in race, and everything in life. Equality is one of the most important things. It's respect, it's everything. It's respect, love of people, and we should never walk away from equality. We should face it. There's lots we've got to learn, myself as well. We've got to learn more and more about this, and I would like to see Black and Asian people taking part in some of the aspects of what the review of different things in the Derbyshire Dales, which will be coming about shortly. So thank you, Chair, and I support this policy very much. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Slack. Councillor Flitter.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm not going to take away all the good work that's been done on this report, but we only too well know the problems with equality, and there are many, many different aspects to equality. That I agree with Councillor Purdy in that if everybody treated other people with respect, regardless of colour, creed or religion, we'd be a far better place. But we all know that's not life, and we have to deal with it. How detailed we need to be within Derbyshire Dales, I'm not sure. But I do concentrate on a couple of issues in public engagement. And I am really concerned. I've had lots of emails this week. We talk about the review of the car parking order. Sadly, that's not going to be completed till 2022. Now, I don't know if every member knows, but Bakewell, Darlydale, Matlock, Matlock Bath, Wirksworth and Ashbourne, all the town councils have been talking together on common issues, and car parking is one of them. So I'm really interested in what level of consultation that will be going on, because I know that have already gone and we've had 2 replies. Whether the other 3 or 4 councils have not sent their letters in yet, but we're all complaining and looking for answers on the same basis. So I'm really interested on the level of consultation, and will we please take note of our local town councils that are there on the hub trying to, after COVID, reinvigorate the town centres. The second one is really blown up this week, and that's the consultation on the traveller consultation, which you expect to come in September. Now, I don't know how information has got out, but there is a glut this week of where sites are probably going to be, what the councillors are going to do about it, the secrecy. We've had everything come up this week, and really and truly on any site that's put forward by travellers, we need to talk to the local people, we need to talk to the parish councils, and we want to talk to ward members. And so there again, I'm really concerned about the level of consultation that we will be going through. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe. Councillor Paul
Flitter,
Wilson.
actually.
Sorry, Councillor Flitter. I'm looking at something else. Mr. Wilson, would you mind to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. In terms of the car parking order issue, I have received letters from the 4 principal town councils, and a letter went back to them this week, which basically acknowledged the concerns that have been raised. Now, whilst council haven't formally requested a review of the car parking order today, that is certainly something that officers are aware of. And if it's something that council wishes to undertake, then we can certainly build that into our work programme moving forward. And that is something that we're clearly mindful of doing in the very near future. The leader of the council has already had discussions with Ashbourne Town Council, and we certainly have received representations from many others. So we are acutely aware of that, and it does need to feature as part of the council's recovery plan as part of the COVID-19 situation. But members don't need me to tell them there's a very significant financial consideration there with car parking charges, and members do need to balance that level of income that the council receives to support services against any future changes that the members may wish to make. In regard to the traveller situation, members will also be aware we have scheduled a special meeting of council to discuss that particular matter. Councillors will be presented with potential options for sites, and that report will be issued on Monday of next week. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I'd like to bring in Councillor Hobson.
Thank you, Chair. It's pleasing that the targets have been exceeded, and I'm really looking forward to our next objectives also being achieved. Reviewing the equality plan, bringing in external people to help us, I think it just shows that we are open to engagement with other people. As Lynn says, she has, she's worked for this council for a long time. She's got a wealth of experience, which I think we've all benefited from. But the one team, one council, one purpose, as other members have said, treating everyone with respect is the only way that we should go forward.
Thank you. Councillor Allison, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that I'm really pleased about the revised compulsory training that's going to be put in place for other councillors. I think that's something that's needed, and you know, I think that's excellent. Actually, really pleased with that. I'd just like to go back to the recruitment issue that I think Councillor Radcliffe raised. In that, is there any analysis done on post-recruitment of the number of applications you actually receive from members of the BAME community? And do we actually start to look into what barriers there might be there for them actually being successful in their applications, or are we just not getting any applications? Thank you.
Lynn or Steve?
Shall I answer?
Yes, Lynn.
We do get some applications. It depends on the type of role, and we do monitor who gets through and who doesn't. But that's an HR function, so I can't actually speak for Deborah Unwin on this. But it's published in the equality information every year, so you can have a look in there. The recruitment and selections bit. We have in the past targeted particular publications or websites without any increased success, and sometimes it's down to just not having the right experience or you know, meeting the essential criteria. There's a raft of different reasons. It's very difficult to pin it down, especially when you've got very small numbers. So you know, if you have any ideas, I'm sure HR will welcome them, because we are constantly looking for ways to improve that.
Thank you. Does that help with your questions, Councillor Allison? Thank you. I'd like now to bring in Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment regarding Mike Ratcliffe's comment on recruitment. Talking from the Blue Light Brigade for many years, we found in those days in Derbyshire Fire Service, we tried with all our hearts to actually get black and ethnic and ladies into the brigade. Not the fact that, and we would have welcomed them, really, we would. But the fact is, we haven't getting the candidates going forward. So that, you know, there's nothing we could do about it. And I don't think at the same time, even now, there's still not enough the candidates going forward that we should be recruiting. So very often it's very disappointing. You know, through the years, at one time, you know, we welcome ladies into the fire service, and believe when they come in, they've done a brilliant job, and some have gone to very, very high ranks. So again, I don't want the answer to this question of also after recruitment, but at the same time, is if people don't come forward, there's not a lot you can do about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. I think, well, obviously from this and from the replies that Lynn has given us, I do feel that Derbyshire Dales Council is doing its best and is open there for every walk to help and get involved. It's just how else, and obviously, as Lynn has said and the likes, if we have any ideas ourselves as members that we feel that we could encourage ethnic minorities or disability or any of that nature to come forward to be able to help within our district council, then obviously I'm sure they'd be quite interested to hear that. Going back onto the agenda, I don't see I've got anybody else to speak. I'm just going to go back over to Councillor Purdy just to reiterate you are moving the recommendations as written 1, 2 and 3.
That's correct. Councillor Ratcliffe seconded that motion. If I may just add to the debate.
Yes, thank
you. Chief Constable Walter Stansfield in the 1970s recruited circa 30 black police cadets. There was a lot of pressure in those days on ethnic diversity, and he set on 30 black cadets. They were specifically black. I have to tell you that only one made it to full constable level. and that officer didn't last more than 12 months. So efforts are made, and I think we probably haven't got the answer as to why in some areas it's failing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. I've just noted Councillor Morley wishes to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to speak from an educational background, from a number of years working with Ofsted and also for Ofsted. And in my role as a principal of a national awarding body, many areas used to get downgraded by Ofsted because of the lack of ethnic minority students. And I'm not just talking about the colour of people's skin, I'm talking about people from all over the world, didn't matter where. And in the end, we did have a very long debate at one point, and it was just the fact that those people who fall into various categories, BAME, ethnic minorities, whatever, just weren't living in that particular area. And it was down to the choice of location for their home. And that often was downgraded, which I thought was very unfair, because if we were to look at a city such as Derby, etc., or Leeds or London, even some areas of Manchester, etc., the pockets of habitation is different. And you just might like to, I'll just share this with you. In schools and colleges some years ago, I did actually write the level 2, the national standards for equality and diversity. And there are thousands upon thousands of young people who have taken this qualification as part of their extra curriculum. So it's nice to see and also hear that the youngsters are being brought up with a more diverse society. And who knows, it's still down to where people live. And I think to have figures forced upon anything is really difficult. And I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. Right, we will move back. It has been moved and seconded of recommendations to take the progress of actions of equality be noted, the objectives and the report be approved, and the equality consultation appendix also to be approved. Can I go to Jackie, please, for a roll call of votes? Thank you.
Yes, Chair. Councillor Allison?
For.
Bull?
For.
Battle?
I'm sorry about that. For.
Thank you. Chapman?
For.
Donnelly?
For.
Flitter?
For.
Hill?
For.
Hobson?
For.
Morley?
For.
Purdy?
For.
Ratcliffe?
For.
Slack?
For.
Sutton?
For.
That's unanimous.
Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, we'll move on to item 9, Annual Governance Statement 2019-20. Karen, can I bring you in, please?
Thank you, Chair. The report explains why we prepare an annual governance statement, but the annual governance statement itself, attached as a bunch of the report, that explains what corporate governance is and why it's important. It also explains how we know that our arrangements are working and how we've performed against the code of governance that we set ourselves. And it explains how the council works. I'd like to draw members' attention to part 5 of the annual governance statement on pages 69 to 73 of the agenda. This is a new section this year that shows the impact of COVID-19 on our corporate governance. I'd also like to draw members' attention to section 6. On page 74 of the agenda, it shows the progress against last year's action plan. And on page 75 of the agenda, it identifies 3 significant governance issues that have come out of the review and the actions that officers plan to address them. Those 3 areas are the budget gap, which was on last year's annual governance statement, and members will be familiar with that. The second area is asset management, where an internal audit report identified some areas that need to be strengthened, and there's a plan in place to do that. And the third area relates to member and employee training, where a review has shown that there have been some gaps in our training that need to be addressed. And again, we've got a plan to deal with that. So I'm asking members to approve the annual governance statement for 2019-20 and to note the 3 areas that have been highlighted as significant and the plan that we have to address them. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Are there any questions? Councillor Purdy.
No questions, Chair. I'd like to move the recommendations, but in saying so, I'm sure all members will realise the significance of what Karen has just said. We face unprecedented times and we still don't know from government whether we're going to get any more financial support, especially in our leisure industry area. So, having said that, we have always been blessed with good financial officers, and thankfully we're in a situation with our authority, whilst we are concerned, we're not in a position as Amber Valley are, for example, just down the road. And I know that through the MHLGC WhatsApp messaging that I have, there's many other leaders in the country are very, very concerned about their authorities. So we don't know what's around the corner. I'm pleased that Karen takes such prudent steps. It's admirable. And I'm sure that members will support this report and wait to see what's around the corner. And that's the fact of this. We need to see what's around the corner and adjust if necessary. And sometimes this is a daily situation to have to adjust to.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry if I'm hogging some of these agendas this evening. I mean, there isn't a great deal really to be drawing out, in a sense, from this governance statement. There's much to be pleased about, obviously, and it's right to celebrate those successes. But the major thrust, really, it is very similar to governance statements that we've had really over the last, I suppose we could go back 10 years, in that it's the financial fragility of this council brought about by issues that are almost beyond our control. And of course, recently, this has all been thrown into dramatic relief, really, by the COVID crisis. And Karen has pointed out some of the major income losses sustained by that. I mean, Councillor Purdy has injected a little note of optimism, as it were, hoping that things will change for the better. But maybe we have to start thinking that maybe they won't, in a way, and maybe the financial position that we are more and more getting used to will be the new financial normal, as it were. And this is the way that we are going to have to operate. One of the things I am really pleased about, and I think is drawn out in this statement, is that independent assessment of us by our peers is showing that we're doing an extremely good job. Some of the peer challenge comments, of course, did say that maybe our general movement is a little too cautious, but nevertheless, people do regard the work of this, and indeed the management of this council, to be very high. And I think we need to be congratulated ourselves for that. But as I say, I'm starting to think, because quite clearly, given the political party that I belong to, I look at the central government and their shenanigans very closely, and I'm not sure that things are going to significantly alter, because at some point or other, let's face it, all the investments that have gone out through the Chancellor's office are going to have to be repaid. And who knows whether we are not going to be asked for further savings. However, this is all up in the air to some degree. But I mean, thank you again, Karen. We seem to have lost your picture. I'm sure you're there. Oh, there you are. But thank you again. I mean, what can we say? You are the mainstay of this council. You and other officers do an absolutely tremendous job with very little resource, and I think time and time again we congratulate you, but you thoroughly deserve it.
With that, Councillor Ratcliffe, are you seconding the motion?
I am, Chair, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to echo much of what Councillor has already said. I think the office has done a remarkable job in very, very difficult circumstances. All they've ever got through this last 6 months is unbelievable. To do what they've done, what we've lost, the car parking, we've lost over £1 million with the car parks being closed, and umpteen losses we've made, and we've come up with a shortfall of about £750,000, which is really good to say what we've come through. You know, that will probably come from reserves, but over the next few years we will have to start and build the reserves up again, and it's going to be a very, very difficult time over the next few years. But all the officers done a remarkable job in this very, very difficult time, and I've got the fullest admiration for what they've done. And thank you very, very much, all the officers, and Paul Wilson, all the officers. Thank you all for what you've achieved in this very, very difficult time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Slack. Yes, with that, obviously, I will echo all of that. When you chair, sometimes you're just asking others to speak. But yeah, when I first came onto this committee, although I've been a member since 2015, Karen has always presented some very, very in-depth report and made us all aware of the circumstances, and is very prudent of how things go. And yes, I echo the fact that Karen and all the staff and the officers within the council do a remarkable job within the circumstances that we're in today, in the uncertain times. I've got nobody else to speak. I
have indicated, Chair.
Sorry, who was that? Councillor Flitter?
It was.
Sorry, I don't seem to get where it comes with your hand up. Sorry, Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, I have no questions, Chair, but I just did want to reiterate that this is a good, detailed report. It's detailed, but it's concise. It's very understandable, and it actually doesn't leave any questions to be asked. And I do agree with the comments that have been made before, that this council has been blessed over many, many years with good and expertise and professional financial staff. And I say it every year, we thank them. We just don't realise how invaluable they are. And long may it continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter. Councillor Hobson.
Chair, I'd like to echo what my colleagues have already said. This is an important public expression of what this council does every year. So it is important to show how we are managing, and our officers have done a marvellous job, particularly Karen and her team, and with Steve and his team. They're giving out the grants. They've all had additional work to do. We should thank them for all their hard work, and none of us know what's around the corner. We're living in difficult financial times, but I wish our financial team the very best of luck.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hobson. With that, it has been moved by Councillor Purdy and seconded by Councillor Ratcliffe that we take and approve the statement and note any actions. Can I take to Jackie for the vote, please?
Yeah. Councillor Allison? For. Bull?
For.
Bottle?
For.
Chapman?
For.
Donnelly?
For.
Flitter? Flitter?
For.
Hill?
For.
Hobson?
For.
Morley?
For.
Purdy?
For.
Ratcliffe?
For.
Black?
For.
Sutton?
For.
That's unanimous.
Thank you for that, everybody. Move on to item 10, data protection. To consider approval of the updated data protection. Karen, I believe that's you again. Thank you.
It is. Thank you, Chair. Change of topic now, data protection. This report's fairly self-explanatory. Usually every 2 years we review the data protection policy. So initially the report was intended just to do that, to update the policy and ask members to approve it. But then I thought that members might want to gain some assurance and some information about what we do to manage data protection. So I added the section into the report about data protection activities. It does highlight that there have been some breaches and near misses, but I'm pleased to say although 2 have been reported to the ICO, they've just made recommendations for changes to procedures and no further action was taken. We weren't fined or sanctioned or anything. And in general, there has been an increase in the number of breaches reported, but I think that's because officers are now a lot more aware. And we're encouraging them to report because we can learn from that. So we're very much trying to have it as a learning culture rather than a blame culture. And the Information Governance Board in particular discusses the breaches and whether there needs to be any recommendations for change. So I just thought you'd like to get an overview on that. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Karen. I'm going to come to you, Councillor Flitter, first, just in case I've missed your hand again. Do you wish to make a comment or question on this?
Yeah, my hand is up on the screen. Well, it's on my screen anyway.
I don't know which hand. Are you doing the blue? Never mind, it doesn't matter.
It's a yellow hand.
That's why.
Yeah, it's a very factual report and another very good report. The only question that I have on this is on the right of access and the right to refuse access. And we talk about if formal ID is adhered to, what other grounds are there that officers could refuse access for information? Thank you.
Karen.
I can't actually recall where we have turned anybody down. We've had some instances where it was difficult to get ID and we have made our requirements perhaps a little less stringent to help people comply with that. But I don't think we've actually refused anybody any information, providing that they can give us ID. There was one situation where somebody had to go through a solicitor. I think it was an elderly person and they didn't have a passport, they didn't have a photo driving licence, they just didn't have the usual stuff, but they were dealing with a solicitor anyway. So we agreed that if their own solicitor could, in effect, confirm their identity, we would supply the information.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Flitter?
Yeah, fine. I just wondered whether there were any other circumstances that could present themselves, but that'll be a challenge when it arrives, I think.
Right. Thank you for that. Councillor Morley, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm in full support of this report and I'd like to move the report. It's very detailed and it's also up to date. And I think it's also pretty fair as well. It's a very difficult thing these days to manage data. As we all know, we're out there. And once you're on various sites and logins, it's very difficult to get yourselves off them. I think our personal data is probably in the hands of many more people that we prefer it not to be. And I think from the authority's point of view, the amount of data that the authority has, I feel that this report is doing it's doing its very, very best to comply with the current legislation. So I'm happy to move this, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't understand why my hand was going up and down there. But you're controlling it. Good. I mean, the two previous speakers, Michelle and Steve, have alluded to something that I just want to very briefly just touch on. Councillors can be subject to the detrimental impact of data abuse as much as anyone, and sometimes more so. We place ourselves deliberately, by being councillors, in a very sensitive situation, in that some form of access and contact is almost consequential with being an effective community representative or champion. But my question to you, Karen, is, first of all, just to confirm that councillors have every right not to have any contact information out there available for anyone to misuse, and that you, as one of the council's officers, are also duty bound to continue to afford us that protection if we so choose to go down that route.
Can I bring you in, Karen?
Yeah. I mean, James might want to pick up on this as well. But in my role as data protection officer, I would say that members have the same rights as everybody else to have their personal data protected, and they do need to give consent for the council to put, for example, their address or their telephone number on its website. I would just throw back to you, though, if you're representing your community, you know, how can you do that if they can't actually find out how to get in touch with you?
Yes, yeah.
As far as I know, it's not a legal requirement that you must give that data.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. James, would you like to come in on this one?
Thank you, Chair. I think Karen's covered the main part. Obviously, all councillors have a Derbyshire Dales email address, so that is, you know, something that we control corporately. So those would be the details that we would publish if members indicated that they didn't want any of their own personal details publishing, and that would be the way that members of the public would be able to contact you if you chose to go down that route. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, James. Are you happy with that reply, Councillor Ratcliffe?
Oh, indeed, Chair, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Purdy.
Well, I didn't know Councillor Ratcliffe was wanting to go into hiding. If he is, I'll come with you. I mean, I think it's such an open and transparent world now, isn't it? You know, I got some involvement with this data protection when I worked as security advisor at Chesterfield Royal Hospital, and there are protections around us more than us offering our details out there. So I think we have no choice but to put our details out there. But then there are other protections that come in. For example, if somebody's filmed, your face has to be scrubbed out and so on and so forth. But I just want to touch upon an issue about data protection, and this is a message for everybody to spread out. A very good friend of ours in Newcastle has been scammed of £8,000, and it's through a telephone system where somebody's purporting to be from their bank. and the friend concerned spoke to the bank manager, and they are concerned, the bank are concerned, that there are people working now on the insides of banks and thereby getting information on people. So it's just a message of warning.
Thank you for that, Councillor Purdy. And I must admit that our own councillor, Lees, was actually had money taken from his account under the similar aspect of it being from the bank issue. So, yeah, it's as close to home as anywhere, unfortunately. Is anybody else wishing to speak? I think we've exonerated everything on there. It was been moved. Have I got a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'll second, Chair.
Councillor Ratcliffe, thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. Can I go to Jackie to take the vote, please?
Chair. Councillor Allison.
For.
Bull.
For.
Battle.
For.
Chapman.
For.
Donnelly.
For.
Splitter.
For.
Hill.
For.
Hobson.
For.
Morley.
For.
Purdy.
For.
Ratcliffe.
For.
Black.
For.
Sutton.
For.
That's unanimous.
Thank you very much for that, everybody. Oh, wait. Who's let the dog out? Okay, moving on to item 11, external audit review and internal audit. I'll bring in Jenny here, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this report is just to notify members that the external review of internal audit is due in the summer of 2021. The public sector internal audit standards require that there's got to be a review of internal audit at least every 5 years. And we had our last review in 2016. So the purpose of the review is to give members that assurance that internal audit are doing the job they're supposed to be and adhering to best practice and guidance. So in 2016, Derbyshire Dales had their external review at the same time as the Internal Audit Consortium that's made up of Chesterfield Borough Council, North East Derbyshire and Bolsover District Council. And what I'm recommending is that we do that again. It provides Derbyshire Dales with economies of scale and shared learning experience, and also for the consortium as well. So the form of the review is that we'll ask the external reviewer to complete the public sector internal audit standards checklist. There's a huge checklist of what we should be doing. And that will involve them reviewing our files, looking at our documentation, looking at our working practices, speaking to officers to gauge their opinion of an internal audit, and probably to the chair of this committee as well. So it is important that when we select the reviewer, they've got the right experience. So I tend to obtain quotations, and then we'll assess those in terms of quality, not just price, but quality as well. So what I'm intending to do is agree the specification for the assessment with the Director of Resources, and then the cost of the review will be split equally between the partners of the consortium and Derbyshire Dales. So what I'm recommending is that Derbyshire Dales approve the external assessment of internal audit at the same time as with the consortium, that you delegate authority to myself and to the Director of Resources to assess the quotations and appoint a reviewer, and that you also allocate a budget in 2021-22 to enable the review to be undertaken. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Are there any questions, please? Can't see anybody there, Councillor. Okay, I will take that as no. Then we'll move into debate. Councillor Donnelly, can I bring you in? Thank you. Councillor Donnelly?
You're on mute, Dom.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've read the report with great interest, and I think it's a fantastic report. I'm quite happy to move it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hodgson.
Chair, I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Councillor Purdy, did you wish to speak?
No, it's a good report, as Jenny says, and the joint up working with both of North East Derbyshire and Chesterfield will be to our advantage. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, with that, it's been moved and seconded. I'd like to go to the vote. Thank you, Jackie.
Councillor Ellison.
For.
Bull.
For.
Battle.
For.
Chapman.
For.
Donnelly.
For.
Flitter.
For.
Hill.
For.
Hobson.
For.
Morley.
For.
Purdy.
For.
Ratcliffe.
For.
Slack.
For.
Sutton.
For.
That's unanimous.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, move on to item 12, the Internal Audit Annual Report, please. Jenny again.
Thank you. Yes, so the purpose of this report is to summarise the work that we've undertaken in the financial year 2019-20, and then to use that work to provide an opinion on the council's overall internal control environment. So we've made sure that the report reflects what's required by the public sector internal audit standards. So in 1920, we issued 19 reports, and it's a really positive result for the council. 95% of those reports received a substantial or reasonable assurance, which is our positive assurances. So that shows that you've got controls in place and that they're operating well. You have seen most of these reports on my progress reports. There's just a few that will need to come to the next committee, and that does include the limited assurance of report. The next table, that looks at the key performance indicators for internal audit. So we've got high customer satisfaction rates of 97%. We completed 91% of the plan, and there's just two areas that we've carried forward to next year, and that was mainly due to COVID-19 kicking in. So we did manage to do enough work to give the opinion for 1920, but I just wanted you to know that for 2021, COVID-19 will have an effect on our ability to complete the 2021 plan. And that's mainly because the senior auditor has been heavily involved in this high priority area of looking at the introduction of sound controls for paying out the business grants.
Thank you for that.
We'll bring a more detailed progress report to members in 2021 on where we're up to with the plan. Paragraphs 3.1 to 3.6 give the overall conclusion on the council's control environment, which based on the work we've done means you can have overall confidence in the systems of governance, risk management and control. There's just one area that received a limited assurance report, and there is a plan in place to address those areas. In May, I did undertake a self-assessment of internal audit, and I'm happy that we comply with the public sector internal audit standards. Hopefully when I have our external review, they will agree with that, but perhaps also give us some pointers where we can further improve our service. And we have got quality procedures in place, so I think you can rest assured hopefully that you are getting a quality internal audit service. So the recommendation is that our annual report be approved, and I'll try and answer any questions.
Thank you for that, Jenny. Are there any questions upon this?
Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, I'm just looking at page 99, and I'm looking that we've got one limited assurance, and that's under asset management. I'm not going to go into detail, but can I just be assured that where we have identified these weaknesses and management have agreed appropriate action, are we confident that that will now be put right and we will get back up to the standard that we should be?
Can I bring you back on that, Jenny?
Yeah, we have had a full response to the recommendations we've made with timescales, and we're happy with that response. And there is a system in place that you'll get a follow-up on audit recommendations. So every 6 months we go back to officers and ask, have those recommendations been implemented, and receive their assurance whether they have been or not. And that report comes to members, so that if you're not happy with the progress made, you can further raise the issue, but there is a plan that's been put in place that will be monitored.
Thank you for that. Councillor Mike Ratcliffe, please.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just very briefly, Jenny, ask you, because I picked up on it, that the refuse contract audit is going to be looked at later this year or early next year once the operation has bedded in. How wide-ranging is this audit, particularly in light of the recent negotiation that we undertook to assist with the financial subsidy of this new contract?
Can you take that one, Jenny, or do you want Karen? Yes.
Yeah. Oh, am I on mute?
No, you're fine. Oh, you are now. You're on mute now. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the audit will focus on compliance with the contract. So we'll look at the financial payments, and also that they're meeting any performance indicators that have been set, and that the contractor is meeting those, and they're being monitored and reporting back, and that the appropriate action is being taken where we're not happy that the contract is being complied with. That will be the main focus of the audit areas.
Yeah, this is a slight aside here, Jenny, but one of the questions that I asked during that report, where we agreed to make further financial contribution to Serco, was about how we, at this very, very early stage, can verify that the value of the new machine, the new vehicles, is actually going to eventually bring us a return. In other words, that buying these new machines is for us a financial investment. You know, over an 8-year period, that would seem to be a somewhat tenuous assertion to make, but nevertheless, I got a reply, and I was generally content with it. But I just wondered again, is that something, that little detail, something that you would look at?
It's probably not something that we would naturally have looked at, but now you've raised it, we can add that to our audit programme to bear in mind, and gather some information and see what he's been doing to evidence that those vehicles are meeting what was expected.
Yeah, yeah.
Lovely, thank you for that. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Chair. As again, it's a good report. It's another one of those kind of reports with a lot of work in the background, and Jenny's work tends to go unseen until you pop up on the screen in this situation, Jenny. So thank you for your hard work. And the high customer satisfaction rates again speaks volumes about the work of this council. May I just tease out with you, though, the resource issue? It's inevitable that we were going to suffer in all departments with COVID. Are you satisfied that you're going to get back on track with this? And if so, what sort of term are you looking at?
Hopefully, the most of the senior auditors' work in terms of checking the grants is done now, and that she'll be able to get back onto audit work. So we've still got 7 months of the year to go. She has been juggling audit work as well. We will have to decide on some audit areas, the lower priority ones, to defer to to following years. To become clearer, I think, in a few months, just how drastically the audit plan has been assessed. At the end of the day, it's possible that at the end of the year, when I give the audit opinion next, it might have to be couched around of terms. The opinion is based on the work that we've done, and we haven't completed as much work as we would usually hope to. But as you're aware, there's always been sound systems and controls in place. So hopefully what we do, if we concentrate on the high and medium risk areas of the time that's left, we will be able to cover enough work to be able to give those assurances to yourselves.
Indeed, thank you, Jenny. And that's given that we've got a good run through to the next term without any second wave impact coming to affect us. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Donnelly, questions? You're on mute. Sorry, Councillor Donnelly.
Yeah.
Councillor.
Thank you. I just congratulate Jenny on her excellent work in these very hard times. I'm quite happy to move the report on. Thank you.
You'd like to move it, lovely. Thank you for that. Do I find a seconder for this report? Councillor Donnelly's moved. Councillor Chapman, thank you. Can I just echo with what Councillor Purdy said, and that you obviously feel that we will get back on track, Jenny, and that we will be getting updates on our next meeting of our G&R group for what has gone in there, and probably the questions that have been asked, that have been highlighted mainly for the members in this group committee, can be highlighted as the pro forma for the next meeting, if that's possible. Is that all right with you, Jenny?
Yes, I'll bring a report to the next meeting exactly where we're up to on the 2021 audit plan.
That's lovely. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there anybody else who wishes to make any comments? Then I will move to Jackie to take the vote. Thank you.
Councillor Allison?
For.
Bull?
For.
Battle?
For.
Chapman?
For.
Donnelly?
For.
Litter?
For.
Hill?
For.
Hobson?
For.
Morley?
For.
Purdy?
For.
Ratcliffe?
For.
Zach?
For.
And Statham. Sorry, Sutton.
For.
That's
We've got a
unanimous.
new member coming then, Jackie. That's
I
unanimous.
can't see the lines anymore.
So thank you very much for that. Okay, we'll move on to item 13, the Internal Audit Charter. Jenny again.
It is.
Keep you busy tonight.
Thank you, Chair. I think this report's quite straightforward. So the committee last reviewed and approved our Internal Audit Charter in 2018. It's really just the terms of reference for internal audit. And it was agreed that you'd review the Charter again in 2 years. So that's what I've done. So it is required that the Charter sets out the purpose, authority and responsibility of internal audit. There haven't been any changes to the public sector audit standards since we last reviewed the Charter. And so having looked at it, I think that it's still fit for purpose and no updates are required. The only actual changes made is the job title from Head of Resources to Director of Resources. So recommendations are that members note and agree the outcome of the review, and that we do a further review in a year, because although we've done it every 2 years before, the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, and now they're recommending it comes every year in case there's a change of members or just to refresh at that time. So again, happy to try and answer any questions.
Are there any questions upon this? Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Flitter.
Yeah, I have to agree. All the reports tonight have been very thorough, very readable and understandable. On this one, I was just looking at this committee's responsibilities, and it states that the governance and resources responsibilities must approve large variances. Worries me a little bit, that statement. I'm just wondering if there are any examples or any more information on that, please?
That would be any large variations to the audit plan, because obviously you approve our audit plan at the start of the year, and that's the plan we work to. So if we were requested to look at other things, or if there are other high risk areas, if it was involved a large number of days, then we would bring that back to yourselves, because it would mean that we wouldn't be able to cover something else. We haven't had that to date. Well, I've been here for the last 3 or 4 years. We've actually worked to the plan and there haven't been any variances. This year, because of COVID-19, it will be necessary, and I'll bring a report to the next audit committee giving you progress to date on the audit plan, and I'll also be discussing with the Director of Resources some lower priority audit areas that we can defer to the years ahead and concentrate on the higher ones. So we will keep members fully up to date with any changes that we make to the audit plan.
Thank you, Chair. That was the answer I was looking for.
Thank you, Councillor Flitter. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Move to debate. Can I have a proposer for this item?
I'll move it, Chair.
Councillor Flitter, thank you. You move. A seconder, Councillor Slack. Does anybody else wish to speak or make any more comments upon this? Then upon that, I will take it that we are going to the vote. Jackie, please.
Councillor Allison.
4.
Bull.
4.
Battle.
4.
Chapman.
4.
Donnelly.
4.
Flitter.
4.
Hill.
4.
Hobson.
4.
Morley. 4. Purdy.
4.
Ratcliffe.
4.
Slack.
4.
And Sutton.
4.
That's unanimous.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, we move on to item 14. The External Audit Progress Report. I will take Karen first, please.
So this report touches on 2 key issues. The first one is an update on the audit of the Statement of Accounts for 2019-20. I don't know if members have been eagerly awaiting the Statement of Accounts for 2019-20. Usually we have to publish by the end of May, but this year, because of the COVID-19, there was an extension to the statutory deadline to the 31st of August. I can tell you that the accounts have now been drafted and they were given to me today for my quality assurance and for me to sign them off. So I hope to complete that by early next week, after which we'll publish. So that will be done within the deadline. The next step will then be for the auditors to review those statements. And John Presley from Mazars is here to tell you shortly on how they will progress with that. The other element to the report flags a potential increase in the fee. As the report indicates, the actual level of increase hasn't yet been determined, but Mazars have indicated that it might be around 20%, which sounds a lot, but actually would work out to be around £6,000. And we could meet that from the General Reserve. So if the Chair doesn't object, I'll pass that over now to John and he can explain the reasons for that increase. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. John, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. In terms of the increase, I would like to sort of just set the scene. 2 years ago, the fee that was agreed by the Public Sector Audit Appointments Body for the Council was 38,000, circa 38,000. Last year, it was £29,000. And we're experiencing an increase in the expectations in terms of our work in a couple of key areas. Firstly, with regard to PPE, that is property, plant and equipment, not personal protective equipment, I hasten to add. There is an expectation that we will track back the valuation information to the relevant inputs. So that is that we'll look at floor plans and supporting information that support the valuation work that has been done, not just simply rely upon the work done by the professional valuer involved. In other words, a greater level of challenge and going into the work in greater depth. With regards to the other area, which is pension liabilities, we've been expected to challenge the assumptions made by the actuary in relation to their interpretation of case law around, say, for example, cases like McLeod and a more recent case that has come up this year called Goodwin, to fully understand what the impact is and whether those estimates are appropriate. That's a much more detailed level of scrutiny, as against simply relying upon the work of either the professional RICS valuer or relying upon the work of Hymans as the actuary and simply saying, yes, we have statements from them, we will rely upon those, that is sufficient. Because we've been asked to do this more greater level of scrutiny and greater depth of work, we're turning back round to the PSAA and saying there's a cost associated with that. If you want a greater level of work done in these areas, therefore we want what we see as being fair recompense, particularly as the fee has been taken down in the way that it has over the course of the last couple of years. So that's, I think, enough said on fee issues. Suffice it to say, there will be a letter coming out from Mazars in the next couple of weeks to Karen, which will clarify the nature of the increases involved and specify the amounts, and that will state specifically what is being asked for. But as Karen has said, Gavin has already given an indication of the quantum involved. Turning now to the progress report, as against fee issues. The progress report outlines the changes to this year's deadline that Karen referred to and talks you through the dynamics involved and what has changed. It sets out the revised timetable by which we'll be starting your audit this year, the external final audit work, on the 21st of September, when we've got those eagerly awaited accounts off Karen, and we will be reporting in November this year prior to the deadline of the 30th of November, which has now been set. With regards to the rest of the progress report, I will take it as read. It sets out a number of recent publications, mainly, I have to say, on the subject of COVID-19, and it outlines the guidance that is being offered to local authorities in relation to the responses to COVID-19. However, if you've got any specific questions, I will be happy to take them, and I am asking members to note the details provided in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Councillor Purdy.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you for that full explanation. I mean, when you read 20%, it sounds a large increase. When you read £6,000, it reads nothing to worry about, really. It's to be expected, I think, with COVID, that there would be an impact. So I personally got no problem in approving the ask. I would ask, though, the estimate is classed as an estimate, and I guess it's not going to be far out. Do we approve the figure now, Karen, on the basis that we give you delegated authority that it won't be far out of that figure? That's one question. And I'll do a rhetorical question that Councillor Ratcliffe always likes to ask. How have you managed to work, John, given the nature of your work and your team, in not being able to access fully our officers? Have you managed to do external audit in an external situation?
Do you want to go first, Karen, and then I'll take the second question? Yeah. The extra fee would have to come from the general reserve. So we'll build it into our forecasts for 2019-20. Hopefully we can offset it by environment from elsewhere. But if not, it will have to come from the general reserve. Shall I take the second part of the question? The second part of the question, in terms of how we do our work, is we have an information sharing system called Huddle, and all of the working papers and the supporting information, we send what is called an information request to Paul, Karen and the team, asking for the supporting information to the accounts. We then look through those working papers, work through those, we pick samples, we send those samples to the council, then Paul and the team, and Karen, if she's unlucky, have to provide us with the supporting information in relation to our sample to evidence the expenditure being categorised as it is in the accounts, and we work on that basis. So an awful lot of email traffic, an awful lot of use of Huddle as an information sharing basis, and people at Mazars still are very much working from home in most instances in terms of doing the work. It isn't quite as efficient as being on site. I am not going to pretend that it is, but it is doable, and we have made good progress with a number of local authority audits on that basis. And I see no reason to believe that we can't complete your audit on that basis as well. I think, Karen, a brief mention was made as to whether they should delegate the responsibility for decision making of the fee to you. So you might like to come back on that one. I'll hand over.
Thank you, John. I think it's, as I said earlier on, it's a big learning curve for all of us, and I think you've succinctly explained the way we're working in this doable situation. It's not ideal. I'm sure we'd all like to get back to the town hall, but it's not possible at the moment. So thank you to your team and all the work done.
Thank you.
Councillor Flitter.
Thank you, Chair. Well, just to answer Karen's question, I'm afraid the answer is no. I've not been eagerly awaiting these final accounts. In fact, I've enjoyed lockdown and self-isolation. 12 weeks of doing nothing is absolutely great. On the second part, I have no problem at all with the increase in fees. The extra work that's got to be done should be rectified, and we should pay our dues on that. But I've just got a question on page 117 on the diagram, and it just says that in November and December we develop, or you develop, the audit strategy. But then you get halfway through the work the following August and you have a reassessment of that audit strategy. Now, I'm sure it's not the case, but any member of the public looking at that may think we're just making it up as we go along. Can you give us some explanation of that, please?
Certainly. We begin by having a look at what the level of risk is in terms of the council's accounts and what we believe the risk of material misstatement to be. We base that on the work that we did in the previous year, what we read of the council's affairs in terms of its minutes and what we're aware of in terms of its activities, and we assess what we see as being the key areas where there may be risks of a material misstatement, and that would include those things like PPE, property, plant and equipment, and pension liabilities, and then there'd be obvious ones, say for example like the management override of controls. So we do all of that at the inception of the audit, at the very, very start of the process for the year. We'd then have our interim audit and time would go by. But at some point or another in the process, we have to then step back and say, what has changed? And this year, what has changed is COVID. That has introduced a greater level of uncertainty in terms of, say, for example, property valuations, where there was a reasonable level of certainty as to what property valuations were in the past. Now all the RICS valuers are basically caveating their valuation work by saying there is a material uncertainty. And it's then how that is reflected in the accounts and how that is reflected in our opinion. So there's that sort of second take as to what has changed. Now, hopefully not much will have, but this year it has. This year we take another look, and because of COVID, there are changes to elements of our work, and what we will look at in terms of things, say for example, like debt recovery and various other things, where there's perhaps a larger level of risk than was previously assessed. Does that help?
Thank you, John. That's very well put.
Thank you for that, John. Very good. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you to John. As in some previous years, your work is extremely valuable to this authority, and it adds to the confidence that we have in our financial management through Karen and her team. So in that sense, the £6,000 extra that we're going to spend, I think it is well spent, not only because of the extra work that you're undertaking, but for the fact that we get out of it this seal of approval, if you like, at the end, and the confidence that things are going well. Can I thank you specifically, John, for that list of national publications that you attached to the report? I was particularly interested in number 24, Key Questions and Issues During the COVID-19 Crisis. I thought that was extremely illuminating, and there were things there that I think we have certainly to bear in mind. I'm not actually asking anything of a rhetorical nature, as it were, but one of the things that I sort of wish that we were able to do is to extract something from the reports that you and others give us on the financial issues of this council, that we could use it in our pleas to government to give us some extra funding to meet the necessities that have come along as a result of the COVID-19 impacts. I realise that you have to be independent, and indeed it's necessary that you are independent too. But I often think to myself, I just wish there was something there that was actually saying, you'd do even better if you had a little bit more money. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ratcliffe. Okay, are there anybody else wishing to speak? And I'll move into debate, and I believe we've already gone through that. So do I find a mover of this recommendation? Councillor Flitter?
Yes, I'll move it, Chair.
And a seconder?
Happily. Yeah, that's me. I'll happily second it.
Mr. Buttle, Councillor Buttle, thank you very much for that. So it's been moved and seconded. I'll move to Jackie for the vote. Thank you.
Councillor Allison?
For.
Bull?
For.
Buttle?
For.
Chapman?
For.
Donnelly?
For.
Flitter?
For.
Gill?
For.
Hobson?
For.
Morley?
For.
Purdy?
For.
Ratcliffe?
For.
Slack?
For.
And Sutton?
For.
That's unanimous.
Lovely, thank you very much for that, everybody. And now we move on to item 15, Members Development Working Group.
Thank you, Chair. The Member Development Working Group got off to a bit of a slow start for obvious reasons, but the members are very engaged and keen to ensure that members get the training that they need to and support and other information to ensure that they can do as good a job as possible. It's a good mix in the group of newer and more experienced members, I think. and this is their report basically. There's not a lot to add to it. We've reissued the training plan today, and it will be updated again. And as soon as we've got all the dates in place, we will get them into members' diaries, because the group are very keen that all members try to attend as many sessions as possible. They've also made a recommendation that mandatory training be completed by the end of the year. I think that's all I've got to say about it, but I'm quite happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from anybody? I don't believe so. Councillor Allison, could I bring you in to make any comments upon this, because I do believe you're on this committee?
I haven't prepared to make any comments, so I think it's fairly self-explanatory. Yeah, we do want to get the mandatory training set up and available for everybody to access, whether that be remotely or whether there is the opportunity to do it on site. Again, really pleased about the quality and diversity training being prioritised on there, and really that's all I've got to say. And thank you to Chris for facilitating it. She's doing a really good job. Thank you.
Would you like to move the report?
Yeah, I'll move it.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite happy to second this plan of the report, and also to thank the members who've been working together on the plan. I think it's a very fair plan, and training is something that we all need. We need updating. We need putting in our place as to what we can and what we can't say, which is fair enough, especially when you're in the public eye. And also, I'm become quite fond of, I didn't believe I'd even say this, but I'm quite fond now of doing online learning. It's something that's been coming for the last, I suppose, 4 or 5 years. And I think it gives people a much more open opportunity to attend sessions, and I'm quite happy to second this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to tease out a couple of things that caught my attention and just ask for some comment from either Jackie or Michelle. I take it you're both on the member development group? No? Oh, it's just Jackie. Is it? But
Yep.
Right. The two things that caught my attention: to assist groups with potential succession planning. One of the things that has been discussed within my group is that, first of all, our relative age. Both Peter and I, in fact, 3, if not 4 members of my group are well over 70. And we're very conscious that we need to have younger people joining, not only as Labour councillors, but as councillors per se. Now, younger people, often if they're in marriage circumstances, are trying to juggle work, family commitments, you know, and how we get over these obstacles to get them interested in local politics and prepared to put in that little extra work into being a councillor. It seems a very difficult thing to do, and quite how we're going to do it, I don't know. But it would seem to me that it's something that we should all be picking up on and trying to persuade young people, as I say, to become councillors. The second thing, if I can just draw your attention, was a comment that the group picked up from one of its questionnaires. Someone, I don't know who, has sent in the comment, I believe there needs to be more input about the rules at council meetings, motions, etiquette, challenge, etc. Now that struck home to me because earlier this evening we had read a report about a councillor being challenged by 3 other councillors about comments made to an officer at a licensing meeting. This point about challenge, etiquette, etc., is becoming increasingly something that we, all of us, need to start thinking about. And I'd be very pleased if the Member Development Working Group could pick up on that and see that there was something that was disseminated within the training framework. So everybody was aware how we need to be treating each other. And again, that's been mentioned this evening.
Thank you. Councillor Allison, would you like to come back on that?
Yeah, I would. Just to take Councillor Ratcliffe's second point about the kind of meeting etiquette and rules for council committee meetings, it's something that I've actually suggested that we have like a quick guide. I think it's in the report that every councillor is given a kind of like a short booklet of the guide to meetings and you know, how you get to speak, just generally about some of the terms that are used in the committees. Because as a new councillor, something that I pointed out at the group was that there's a lot of words that are alien to me. I don't understand them. They were completely new, and it was a really steep learning curve for me coming into it. So it was like having a, you know, some sort of glossary attached to that, which is something that you do with the planning training. So I think it's something that you could incorporate into some sort of quick guide to meetings. Going back to the first point about encouraging younger councillors, yeah, it is really difficult. I think for people that are working full time and have a lot of outside commitments, there is a lot of time that you have to put into this role. I actually had to, well, didn't have to, I was asked to speak to the remuneration, independent remuneration panel about how you can kind of encourage younger people to get involved. And I think one of the issues and one of the barriers to younger people getting involved is that they can't have a reduction in income, which will give them the time to actually spend on council work. So I'm afraid I think it does come down to time and money. And I'm not sure how you address that. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I don't know, Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Allison. Yeah, obviously, as we discussed in the equalities of the likes when Lynn was speaking about trying to encourage others to come into it, whether it be young, old, or anything else, any of ethnic minorities, we do struggle in every sense, and possibly some of it is monetary, not just the fact that not understanding and not having the learning. I must admit though, the Members Development Working Group, I was on it when I first came on, and it is difficult when you're first thrown in as a councillor, learning the rules and regulations of what you can and can't say and how you ask for things to be done and the likes. And I do welcome that we're going into this training, and doing it annually to me is something, because as Mike has already made clear in 2 or 3 circumstances, you're learning something every day of your life. There's something that'll come up and what have you. So to learn is no bad thing all round. And there are new legislations coming in time and time again. I'll move to Councillor Purdy, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to pick up on Councillor Ratcliffe's point, if I may. And you remember the meeting we had, Mike, on the 31st of July at the Town Hall with Councillor Flitter and Councillor Buttle and Chief Exec and CLT. It goes back to what we've said tonight. It's a matter of respect. And cut out all the other words. The simple word is respect. And I want to assure members that I've already picked that theme up with James. I've already had a conversation with James about this. And I believe James has some very good ideas. So I look forward to progress in this area.
Thank you for that comment, Councillor Purdy. Councillor Morley, did you wish to come back?
Yes, please, I would. I just want to pick up on something that Jacqueline mentioned about there's actually no answer to getting younger people to join. But I do think with the advent of more online training, do excuse me, the dog's about to go out. With more online training, that it will enable a wider age group to access training sessions, and maybe there's some sort of a buddy system that we could engage in later on down the line for simple questions, or so that younger people can take part if they're even thinking about becoming a councillor in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, right.
Could I just make one more comment, Chair, on that?
By all means, yes.
On the issue of the succession planning, the group did discuss that and felt quite strongly that that was a party political issue and not one for the member development group.
Right, thank you, Chair. Thank you,
I think Councillor Flitter's waiting to come in as well.
Sorry, Councillor Flitter.
I've been sat here waiting patiently.
I tell you what, I'm going to have to find your yellow hand, because my screen must be colourblind because it's not picking a yellow hand up. Okay, sorry, Councillor Flitter.
I just wanted to say that I think the credit for this report goes to Christine. She said it's a member's report, but it isn't really. It's Christine that's done the work. Thank you very much for that. I tend to think that Councillor Ratcliffe was right in what he's saying about the respect issue and the content of some of this report. I do really feel that it's my take that we should get away from the humdrum of mandatory training. Of course, we've got some that we have to do and some that we need to go with legislation. But what I really want to do, and I think the group are coming round to the feeling, that we concentrate more on trying to rectify some of the points that Councillor Purdy and Ratcliffe have put down, because we have the issues training, issues of the day, but I want to get training for members to understand how the council actually works and why officers make certain conditions, because they may not always make the decisions that we're wanting, but they're bound by certain restrictions, whether they are legal, financial, policy-wise, whatever. Now, if members can actually understand why an officer is making those decisions and how it affects the council, then they may come round to thinking and giving that respect that we actually should be showing the professionals. And it's quite strange, because I've always been sceptical of training, because I think there's a fine line, and I've said it before. You can get the training that you need, or you can get somebody coming in from outside that tries to brainwash you. And that, I think, is dangerous. So we have to get really geared up to looking at how this council works. And I said I was always sceptical, and I said at the annual meeting that nobody else wanted to go on it, so I was going to have to go on it myself. Well, I can tell you now, Chair, after a couple of meetings, thank goodness I did, because it's a pleasure to be on. The people that are on it are all together in this, and I think we will make improvements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Flitter, for that comment. Okay, it has been moved and seconded by Councillor Allison and Councillor Morley. So can I go to Jackie for the vote, please?
Councillor Allison?
For.
Bull?
For.
Battle?
For.
Chapman?
For.
Donnelly?
For.
Flitter?
For.
Hill?
For.
Hobson?
For.
Morley,
4,
Purdy,
4,
Ratcliffe,
4,
Black,
4,
and Sutton.
4.
Unanimous.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, we move on to item 16, the Joint Consultancy Group minutes from the 29th of January 2020. What a long while ago. Are there any comments upon that paper? Has anybody seen them? Then can I ask for a proposer of these minutes?
I'll move them, Chair.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Donnelly? Councillor Donnelly? Has he gone?
Switched off.
He's muted.
Councillor Don? No, you're still on mute, Councillor Donnelly. That's it.
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
We finally got there. We've got some gremlins in this works. We've got colourblind screens and chairs. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All in favour? Can we take a show of hands for this? Thank you. I take it that it's unanimous.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Then that concludes our meeting for tonight. I'd like to thank everybody for coming, all officers and guests for attending, and we look forward to the next meeting. Keep safe, everybody, and good night.
Good night. Thank you, Chair. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.